2. Hello, everyone. You are listening to Those Other Girls with Mallory and Friends. I'm Mallory.
And I'm Abby.
And we are changing culture and bringing back traditional values. Okay, you guys. So today's episode, I'm really, really excited about. And it's something I've wanted to do for a while. And we've done one already. We did one on Chris Watts with Caroline almost a year ago, I think. And that is like one of our most listened to episodes. So it's this genre of a podcast is very popular, and I'm super excited to get into it. We are going to do a few true crime episodes throughout this show, and we're going to see how everybody likes it. If you guys are absolutely loving it, please let us know on wherever you listen. Message us, email us, however you want to tell us, and we will keep it up. If you're like, I'm not so much into it, we're still going to do it, just not as much. Okay, so I guess first we're going to talk about just like why we want to do true crime. And also, Abby, introduce yourself, like tell us a little bit about who you are.
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah, my name's Abby. I'm currently in my third year of law school out in San Diego, California.
Oh, that's even cooler. Okay.
Yeah, it's been good. I was raised in Minnesota, so it's a nice change of pace moving out here for law school. But yeah, and thank you so much, Mallory, for having me on the podcast. I really was looking forward to this like all weekend. So yeah. I guess this all kind of started because Mallory and I actually don't really know each other. I mean, we follow each other on Instagram and know each other.
That's about it. Yeah,
through the circles and stuff. But yeah, some of us were talking in one of our Facebook groups about how it's a little frustrating sometimes that the true crime world can be a little woke. And if you're just trying to avoid some of that stuff, it's sometimes hard to find podcasts that don't have that. So we thought, well, why don't we just make our own place at the table? So.
Yes, exactly. And that's what I was gonna say. Like, we don't really know each other, but we both like true crime. And the idea behind us doing this is really just so you can hear these different stories. And we'll probably start off with a lot of famous ones, the different ones without the little like wokeness in the back, or without the little like, I don't know, you know how people can be. If you listen to true crime, you know exactly the big ones. And I mean, I still listen to them. I might like roll my eyes at a certain part, but I also listen to them because they're very interesting and like the way they do their shows. But yeah, that's really just the whole purpose of this. We really hope you guys like it. So our first episode, I guess, in this is going to be talking about Casey Anthony. I remember when this happened. I don't remember what grade I was in, but I do remember it happening. And I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, this lady is so crazy. I can't believe she killed her kid. Wow, it's going to be great when she's in jail. And then we'll talk about whether that happened or not, if you don't know the story. I'm sure most people do know the story. So this might be some new information. It might be some different information. Some of the stuff I watched, some research I did, I actually heard some new stuff. So hopefully we can give you guys at least some new information, or if not, just a refreshing take on it. Because also too, we're both Christians, so we're going to see and speak about things through our worldview, as opposed to some other people who might be sharing the story. So anyway, Abby, take it away.
All right. So Casey Anthony, I am fascinated by this story. It blows my mind still how it ends up, but
yeah,
I'll get to
it. Yeah.
All right. So Casey Anthony was born on March 19th, 1986 in Warren, Ohio, to her parents, George and Cindy Anthony. So from everything I read, it seems like she had a really traditional upbringing. Like, she went to school, she had 2 loving parents, she had an older brother, like she had a lot of friends. So, I mean, it's just kind of like shocking to hear all the stuff that went down with her, because it seems like she just came from a very like normal background.
Yeah. And I think that also kind of shows that crazy doesn't care about like who you are. So if someone's going to be crazy, psychotic, or a psychopath, because I forgot to mention, I also saw it's this YouTube channel now that like shows it shows people's police, why am I not thinking of the words, when interrogations, okay. So it shows people's interrogations, and they analyzed her very first one, and I want to say the second one, and the YouTube channel was saying how it was definitely like she's a psychopath, like she is void of emotion.
Even in my research, everything I read basically said that she had like a habitual lying problem, like from very early on in life. Like there was one story where she was like set to graduate high school, and she invited her parents, her grandparents to her high school graduation, and like she did this knowing full well that she was like several credits short of graduating, and she just like invited them and they all showed up, and she like didn't graduate. And I was kind of like, girl, like what was your plan?
Okay, so Stephanie Harlow, who I love on YouTube, she talks about that too, and she said this is also too what I think is very interesting, and you can see it throughout like when all this stuff happens with her daughter, but her parents knew and they just went along with it. Nobody else in their family knew. They just made up stuff, and her parents knew and went along with her just being there. That is so crazy.
Right. You've got to wonder, like, you know, just kind of the enabling of her parents might have caused a little bit of that issue. So, but and then she did the same thing when she got pregnant. So it's like she was gaining weight, and her family was kind of like, hey Casey, like what's going on? And she literally told them she was a virgin, and they were like, I mean, okay. And again, I was like, what is your end goal here? Like you're going to have a baby eventually. You know? You can't just hide it. But she eventually fessed up, and she gave birth to her daughter Caylee Anthony on August 9th, 2005. So Caylee's father has never been publicly revealed. Like people have speculated, and a lot of people, I guess, thought it was her. She had like an ex-fiance or something, which I don't really know how that all went down because she was only 19 when she had Caylee.
That's interesting.
But I guess DNA evidence showed that it wasn't him. So still, like nobody really knows who her father was.
I wonder if she even knows. She probably doesn't.
That's the thing too, because in a lot of places I read that she had told her family like multiple different men who were the father. And they were like, she was either lying or didn't know or was just guessing. Who knows?
That's so crazy. And for the men that are listening, that's why you just don't sleep around with anyone. Like you just, I mean, you like, can't. You have to be
careful. It's do you want to have a kid with this person? Like it's a question you might want to ask yourself.
And I just can't imagine. That's wild.
Super crazy. So early on, Casey considered giving up Caylee for adoption, but her parents, specifically her mom, Cindy, convinced her not to. And
Casey, were they religious? Sorry to cut you off. Were her parents religious?
Oh no, I didn't read anywhere that they were, but they did have a very like traditional family, it seems.
I didn't either. And I'm just thinking like now we're talking about it, I'm thinking like I feel like they see, you know, hey, we'll help raise it, don't have the abort, stuff like that. I feel like that's very like Christian-y. So I'm kind of, and then thinking she's a virgin at 19 and stuff like that. I feel like that's very Christian.
I almost wonder if she like kind of felt guilty or something, like if she had been raised Christian, if she wanted her parents to think she was a virgin because she didn't want to, you know, be sinning or anything. Or and I know like family values are very, very important to Christians, and you know it would probably break a grandmother's heart to see her daughter give up a baby for adoption. So I think, you know, it's possible. I didn't read it anywhere, but
me neither.
Could be. Okay, where was I? So Casey and Caylee lived with Casey's parents in their Orlando home up until June of 2008, which is kind of when it gets real with all this stuff. So
the spiral.
Right, exactly. So Casey and Caylee moved out of George and Cindy's house in early June of 2008, and they moved in with Casey's ex-boyfriend and one of her friends, which that really struck me because I was like, that sounds like a terrible environment for an infant.
Awful. So quick story real quick. In college, I was friends with this group of people, and they had a guy that was staying in their house, and this guy was dating this girl with a kid. And I'll just never forget, she brought the kid around, and you know, I love kids, nothing against kids, but like we were in college and it just didn't make sense for her to bring her child around. And we, not me, I would never put money into this, but some of the guys bought a keg, and the baby is there and is like walking over to the keg, and the guy is like pouring, doing the thing, putting himself like some beer, and she's like, juice, and he's like, no, this is adult juice. And I was like, oh my god, I need to leave. Like, everybody in this house is going to be in trouble for child endangerment.
Oh
I
my
cannot
gosh, yeah, is
imagine.
anybody watching this child?
Yeah, and I'm like, someone do something with the baby. Like, why is the baby here? We're trying to have a party. Like, where's your mother? It was just, and I just, when you said that, that made me think of that. Like, why I just could not bring, I can't imagine bringing a child into an environment like that. I'm not saying that they were having keggers and doing all this crazy stuff, but like, I just can't imagine like, bringing a child into that, because when you're young and you don't have kids, your lifestyle is very different than when you are older, and or even when you are young and have kids, your lifestyle should be different if you have kids. And that's crazy.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem a lot of times when people have kids really young, especially when they're unmarried.
Yeah,
it's they don't have the maturity to know that like a baby is a huge change to make in your life, and you need to actually like make those changes, not just like continue living the lifestyle you were living, and just like kind of tend to the kid when you want to, because that's not how a kid works. A kid becomes your whole life.
Right. And you're right. I think that the maturity is the biggest issue, and that's why I really think like families are important, because if your mother and your father and maybe even your grandparents are kind of helping you out, it could maybe straighten you up a little bit. But like you said, a lot of unwed mothers especially, and I mean even fathers, because I feel like it could be even worse with fathers, because they don't, 9 times out of 10 they don't even have custody over the child, so they can go out and do whatever they want when their responsibility should be for that child.
Yeah, absolutely, totally agree.
Well, I feel bad for the baby already. Continue.
Caylee and her parents had a fight similar to what we were talking about, because I guess everything kind of, went to a head on June 15th, 2008, which was Father's Day, which makes it even more sad. But I guess, that day, Caylee took Caylee, hopped in a car, and that was kind of the last time her parents saw her. So,
oh gosh,
which is just so
Father's Day.
On Father's Day, it's so heartbreaking, because I mean, they didn't know at the time either that was the last time they were ever going to see their granddaughter. And to still like not really know the truth of what happened just must be
awful. And I'll get to it at the end, but also too, knowing that it was on Father's Day just says so much to like how her relationship with her father is today. Wow.
Foreshadowing. Wow. All right.
Okay.
So during the time Caylee was missing, like her parents, I think, like from what I got from everything I read, like they caught on pretty quick that like something was up. Yeah. Like they were calling Casey and being like, where's Caylee? Like, what's going on? And Casey, she was just living it up. Like they looked at her internet history, when they were investigating, obviously, and she was looking up like shot girl costumes, and she was spotted on June 20th, so 5 days after they stormed out of her parents' house, at a local nightclub participating in a hot body contest. Like, and that's the blue dress. First of all, picture, right? Yes, okay, that one. Okay, yeah. And I mean, like, what nightclub is having that's disgusting. Like,
and what year was this again?
2008.
Okay, was that a thing back then? To me that's so weird. Like I wouldn't want to participate. That's
to me weird. That just screams like Girls Gone Wild, spring break. Like, no, like, girl, you have a child.
Yeah, I mean that's the other part too. I think that we're living such a culture now where people just want to continue their adolescence, and like I think people should just realize your life changes with a child. And I mean, I don't have kids or anything like that, but like I see different things on social media and people just want to keep living that life, and you just can't do that. Certain things change, and I think that's another problem that we have in society. We just don't want to move on to the next phase. Even when you're married, certain things in your life should change when you're married. than it should be when you're not married. And people don't want to do that either. People want to kind of stay in this, like, I don't know, college free bubble that we had, but it's just not sustainable. And it's not right. It's not fair to the kids either.
Yeah. I feel like too, it's become just so like accepted and even celebrated to kind of like live that lifestyle, you know? And I don't know, like I've kind of tried that lifestyle in my life and I like, it never brought me happiness, you know?
Yeah.
It's not something that's like, it might bring you temporary pleasure to, you know, be like partying all the time and like, you know, live this kind of frivolous lifestyle, but it's never going to bring you lasting happiness.
No. And it's not sustainable.
No.
I mean, I tried it ish in the sense of like, there was a time like in college where we would do the Thursday, Friday, Saturday thing. But then I realized it wasn't as wild when I hear other people's stories. I'm like, oh, I was going wild, but like I hear other people, it's like, maybe I wasn't going that wild. But anyway, my point being like, it's just not sustainable because after a while you're tired, you don't have any, you lose money. And then one of the things that I know for myself now is like, when you have goals, when you have things that you need to accomplish, you can't just be spending your time and energy and money on other things. So I know that I'll say specifically my sophomore year, that's when I think it was at my height of my quote unquote partying. At my sophomore year, I really didn't have like, I feel like I just didn't care about the future. Like I care, but not really. Like I had dreams and goals and stuff, but not like I do now. Like now, obviously, like I do like to go out in the sense of like I like dancing or like being with my friends, but I know I can't do it every single weekend, and it's limited because I have the podcast, I have a job. I mean, that's the other thing too. Like if you have a career, you're not going to risk your career by being photographed at a hot girl's nightclub thing. If you have a career, you're not going to risk spending all of this money if you have like if you're doing something entrepreneur, you're not going to risk spending all this money at a club trying to impress people who don't care about you when you have to invest in your microphone and your camera and a new laptop. Like it's just and I think that's a big difference between like people in those phases, because I know I just think about sophomore year of college Mallory. I didn't think about those things. So you know, then what's the point?
I think with that too, sophomore Mallory, like the future seemed far away to her, you know? And I think that's kind of how Casey was thinking too. She wasn't thinking about a career or jobs or being a mom or what, you know, anything that should have been her priority because she was young and it all felt so distant to her, I think. So, you know,
and yikes, because her future was then. Like your future is now.
The problem here is that like there were consequences and like huge ones. Like partying a little in college, like, you know, it's fine. Like
yikes. Okay.
Yeah. So she was like living it up this whole time. But then on July 15th, George and Cindy, her parents, because so I guess like when she drove off from their house, it was a car in George's name, and she had left it like in a parking lot for like several days, and it ended up getting impounded, and he got notified when it got impounded, so he went to pick it up. And this is like kind of when the investigation gets started, because when he went to pick up the car, he said he was overwhelmed by this just awful smell, and Cindy like lost it, like, and she made like a whole bunch of 911 calls and basically was like, my granddaughter Caylee's missing. Like, we just picked up this car. It smells awful. Like, I don't know what to do. And she pretty much demanded that Casey was arrested, like, because she was just so freaked out about the whole thing and obviously assumed the worst. And so, yeah, the very next day, they started the investigation, and it gets like pretty weird. Like,
so I know where you're going with this. It's so weird. She's a psychopath.
Like, so we touched on Casey's habitual lying, and it comes back in a very strange way. But she, I guess, first told police that Caylee was with her nanny named Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez, who they called Zanny. And like, I personally really enjoy Zanny the nanny. I think that's just
oh yeah.
so
Every
funny.
time, yeah. Whenever anybody says that, I'm like, oh, I like that. That's a good.
The media just like went nuts with it too, which I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, I see you.
Yeah, I get it. Makes sense.
Yeah. So she told investigators that Zanny had run off with Caylee on June 9th, which I was like, your parents saw Caylee more recently than that. So that's a terrible lie, first of all.
Yeah.
And then she like brought them to Zanny's apartment, but it was empty. And they were like, where even are we? It was just like weird.
I just imagine her really quick. Sorry. I just imagine her doing like in the movies where like you go to the apartment and like, I guess she's made up the scenario that this lady has run away with her child. And like, you know, in the movies where they're like trying to catch like a thief or something and they go to their house and then their house is empty because they weren't really living there. And I just imagine her thinking like, yeah, this plot for that movie, that's going to work for here in real life. They're going to believe me. Like,
yeah.
So
it just
crazy.
Also kind of shows how, again, short-sighted she was. It's like, oh, I have this great lie. They'll totally believe me. But it's like, they're police. They're going to follow through on this investigation. They're going to figure it out. Like, again, what's your plan here? So, yeah, that ended up being a bust. And then, so I don't totally understand how this ties into the story, if she, like, was trying to lead them to Caylee or what. But she told investigators that she had a job at Universal Studios, and she like dragged them to Universal Studios for some reason. Again, I don't really understand fully how this
I don't
story, but it was in like every article.
Yeah, everything I heard they talked about, and I still was kind of confused. I guess it just showed like how much of a liar she was.
Well, it's the same day that this Zanny the nanny thing happened, and it's like right after. And she takes them to Universal Studios, and she like brought them inside, and she was like pretending she knew people and stuff. She was like saying, oh, hey. And she was like, oh yeah, I'm going to take you to my office. And eventually she was just like, she like, I guess didn't know what to do. And she was just like, yeah, I don't really work here. And the police were like, what are you doing?
And I think that is the well, other than, you know, the end, I think that's the craziest part, that she would go through with that. I mean, how many times have we in our flesh lied about things, and then we went ahead and stopped because when you, especially, oh my gosh, especially to like law enforcement, like why would you lie to the police? Like, that is just so crazy. That, I mean, she took them all the way to the place. I think the part where she just goes to the door, and this is how I imagine it. She like goes to the door, and then she turns around and goes, psych, I don't really work here. And like, what did she think was going to happen next?
Yeah, I don't know, but police were not amused.
And so crazy.
They charged her with, what was it? Oh gosh, I lost my place. Interfering, it was, lying to investigators and interfering with criminal investigation. And they tacked on child neglect too, just because they still didn't know where Caylee was. So
it's like, okay, but where's Caylee?
Okay, thanks for taking us on this wild goose chase, but we still don't know anything about what we actually came here to investigate. So they were unimpressed, just to say that. So yeah, she ended up, so there was a bond hearing then on July 22nd, 2008, and they introduced two new pieces of evidence. So police, like between the time that Casey got arrested and this bond hearing, they had taken a cadaver dog to the car, the one that George got from the impound lot. And they said that a dog alerted to the scent of human remains in the trunk.
Can you really quick explain what a cadaver dog is for people who don't know, who might not know?
Sure. So dogs have like a heightened sense of smell, like way better than any human could ever do. So they train these dogs like to alert to the scent of like decomposing human, basically. Mm-hmm. And so if they smell it, they alert to it. And it's actually pretty reliable evidence from what it seems like.
Yeah. So, yeah, they use them a lot.
They do, yeah. It's crazy. I mean, it's kind of a similar concept to like drug dogs. Like, you know, when you're at the airport and you're like, they got a dog sniffing everyone's bags and stuff. It's kind of the same concept, but for dead bodies. A little more unpleasant, but yeah. So that was the first piece of evidence, and then the second was Cindy like did a sworn admission saying that she saw Caylee after June 9th, which was when Casey claimed Zanny the nanny kidnapped her, basically. So they introduced those at the bond hearing, and the judge was like, yeah, I don't really know what's going on here. This girl seems whack. So he set the bail for $500,000.
Yeah.
I was like, whew. It's because, I mean, for what she was charged with, that is very high. Like,
yeah,
usually it's like murder and stuff that's $500,000. Like, for interfering with an investigation, lying to investigators, and child neglect, like, I mean, those are like, child neglect especially is an awful crime, but it's like, bond for that is not normally that high.
yeah. I mean, he probably recognized like, okay, something's off. Just tell us where the child is. And I think it got to a point because in one of the things I was listening to, someone was like, at first they were like, well, maybe she's just trying to hide because she has a toxic relationship with her mom. Maybe she's just trying to hide the child from her mom. Just let us know, just so we know that the child is safe. That's all we want to know. And she just would not say anything. She just would not tell them where the kid was. So after a point, it's just kind of like, okay, if you're not going to tell us. Same with and the more recent one, Lori, you know who I'm talking about. She was Mormon and she had the 2 kids. Lori Daybill, is that am I thinking right?
Okay, I know what you're talking about, but I haven't actually done a deep dive on it yet. Okay. But my mom was telling me she watched some documentary on this.
Okay,
you have to watch it, but I haven't yet. So
that's crazy.
Maybe we'll cover that one sometime.
Yeah, we should, because that's a more recent, and she was crazy too. But I mean, it's the same concept of like, you have to tell us where your children are. Like, it's getting to be ridiculous. Like, at first it was like, okay, maybe that you have a good reason for hiding your child. Now it's like, okay, you need to tell us, or legal action has to be done.
Right. I think that's like, where, at that point, they just don't have a choice. Like, it's their granddaughter, you know, they need to know what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay. So she gets this bond set for $500,000, and on August 20th, so like a month later, almost, this California bounty hunter, I'm not really totally familiar with what a bounty hunter is, but that's how it was described.
Yeah, I don't get it either.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
But he posted her bail, and because he's like was hoping that she would tell him something, and I'm like, hey, dude, good luck, you know?
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I haven't heard that part.
Yeah, which was like weird. No, it gets weird. Like, she is in and out of jail like a few times, but yeah, she doesn't tell him anything, obviously, and he's kind of like, okay, great, well,
I just
wasted all that money. Cool. But she was arrested again on August 30th for writing checks on her friend's checking account without permission, which I thought was like kind of just random little like, like, dude, you're already in trouble with the law, like, are you trying to make it worse on yourself?
Like, they probably arrested her because they're like, okay, we need to get this chick in jail because she's crazy. And then it's also like, why would you like do that? First of all, why would you do that to your friend? And you should be on your best behavior if you are out on bond.
Seriously.
Your best behavior.
But then her parents put up her bail to get her back out, so she was released again on September 5th. So it's just like, it's a crazy just couple of months in here, you know, that happened for her. It's this investigation, this in and out of jail, like. And then she goes back again because so this I found odd, but there were new check fraud charges. So she did it again, the same thing with the checks, but she turned herself in this time, which I was like, I don't really understand what's happening here. And her bond that time was only $1,250, which I was like, that's a huge difference between the $500,000 it was before, but okay. And yeah, like during this whole time, like you can just tell the whole thing's really hard on her family, because at one point they found a gun in George's truck, and they were like, I mean, I didn't read anywhere that she got in like any huge trouble for it or anything, but it was technically in violation of her bond to have a gun on the premises where she was living. So, and George apparently said he had the gun so that he could use it to force Casey's friends to tell him what happened to Caylee, which I was like,
oh, George.
I don't know if I believe that. But...
No, to be honest, I was thinking George was going to like hurt himself, because George took this really hard. I feel like he took it harder than everyone else.
Yeah, well, there was one occasion where they found him in a hotel room, like and he was under the influence of either alcohol or medication
Oh
or both.
wow.
And
That
he
is
like
so
had sent
sad.
his family members a bunch of like disturbing text messages, and they found a suicide note, and like it
Oh,
was a whole weird thing. And I was like, oh,
poor
George,
George.
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel for him, because I mean, going through something like this with your daughter, like, oh
Yeah.
God, that's just gotta.
Like you lost your, I'm sure he knows because in one of the documentaries they said that he was a police officer, I think, a former police
Mhm.
officer. So I'm sure he's not stupid. He knows that his granddaughter is dead. But then to just imagine that your daughter did it, like that just I can't even imagine like psychologically, like you raised a murderer. Like how would
It's
I can't even.
it's got to be so hard to come to terms with, I would think, because I
Yeah.
think that's why so many, like, I mean, you're a true crime junkie like I am,
Yeah,
like, and
yeah.
in so many of these stories, it's like these parents just stand by their child through the end, like
Yeah.
they maintain their innocence fully, and I'm like, despite all of the evidence that's against
Yeah.
them, it's obvious they did the thing they're being accused of, but it's like, as a parent, I'm guessing it's just so hard
You
for
probably
them to
can't.
come to
Yeah.
terms with, that they just can't
Yeah.
let themselves go there, which is so sad.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a very good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, where was I? Let's see. Okay. Oh, and then so then Zanny the nanny. So the thing that I found odd is Casey like fully made up this Zanny the nanny. Like there was no Zanny the nanny. Like she just totally made it up as I don't know, on the spot to pin this on someone, or I don't know.
Yeah.
But turns out there was a woman who had the same name that I mentioned before,
And
that Zenaida Hernandez Gonzalez.
that was
And she,
strange to me too. I never
yeah,
understood like how did that happen?
because it was like, that's not like a common name. Like,
No, and not in
so,
America, for being honest. Like,
yeah. Yeah. So
yeah,
I was like, that's crazy that like there actually was a person who like had that name. So yeah, she filed a defamation suit against Casey, which I was like,
yeah,
Casey,
good for
dude.
her. Like, that was crazy. Because then
Yeah.
they like interrogated her, and it turned out she didn't even know who Casey was. It was like, I don't know, I've never
Yeah.
met this woman. That's so
They had
crazy.
no connection. And
Yeah,
Casey invented this fictional person, but it's like, did she know who she was somehow? Or,
yeah.
but it's just, either way, it's terrible, because this poor Zanny was kind of getting her name dragged through the
I
mud
was gonna
for
say
literally no reason. And I
her
mean, I don't blame her
reputation.
for wanting to file a defamation suit, you know?
Yeah, and I think
She was
especially at the
probably
beginning.
getting approached by reporters and all that. I mean, it was a
Yeah.
huge media circus, so you just got to feel bad for her. I mean, just getting dragged into it, and she like doesn't even know her.
Yeah, and especially at the beginning, because I think um everybody was believing her. At least they believed a little bit of what she said, that this nanny could somehow be involved. So I'm sure she probably had reporters, probably had death threats. Because I mean, that's not a common name. So anybody that even knew her was probably like, what? That's so and so. She works at blah blah blah.
Right. Yeah. Especially, I mean, I didn't really see anywhere where she lived, but if they were in the same city or close by or something, like,
Yeah.
it could be plausible for people. But yeah, so this poor
Yeah.
woman. Ugh.
I know. I feel
Casey
bad
has
for
made
her.
quite the mess for people,
Yeah.
essentially.
For
Um,
real.
so yeah, I'm gonna turn it over to you now, Mallory. Mallory did a little more of the research on the actual the indictment and the trial and all that kind of stuff. So I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. All right. So we left off. Okay. So they found that the extra person, the rando, who had the same name, and it was not the person that she didn't even know. So then eventually, I believe it was a gardener found her remains, and the remains were so decomposed. I guess let me look up the actual date really quick. I should have
Oh, I think
taken.
I have it.
Oh, perfect.
December 11th. So this
December,
is like 6 months.
months
Yeah.
after she was last seen. So they found her remains, and she was so decomposed they could not tell how she died. There was no way they could determine how she died. So then that's when they decided to send her to have her on trial. It was such a crazy media circus that they had to get people that did not live in her town, because everybody had an opinion. And what I think this was one of the first ones that like everybody, I think this kind of got people into true crime, because I remember even talking, it was on the news all the time. And then I remember seeing on the news how people were coming to their house. They were coming to Casey Anthony's parents' house, and they were calling her a murderer. They're saying, what happened to Caylee, blah, blah, blah. And that's kind of, I think, the beginning of when all of this kind of started to spiral, because I think this was the first really big major. I mean, there was OJ Simpson before this.
This came right after Scott Peterson too. So I think people were really riled up about that, because I mean, people get really, really angry, especially when children are involved.
Yeah.
In the Scott Peterson case, his wife Lacey was pregnant when he murdered her. And I think something about that just really like sets people off with this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, Chris Watts too, we saw it with that. Like when there's children involved, people just are people by it. I mean, rightfully so.
Right. And people take the matter into their own hands, which I do think is, I'm not gonna lie, I do think that's kind of odd. Like, I wouldn't go to someone's house and scream murderer. Like, I don't really see the purpose of that, but I understand people's passions about it. And this was right before social media too, so thank God, because I can't even imagine what would have happened to her on probably what happened to Chris Watts on social media. But anyway, so they had to get people from another state to come and do the trial. So the trial to me is probably the saddest part. And I talked about how I felt bad for George, her dad, because you guys, the lawyer for her threw her dad under the bus and said that, trigger warning, her dad like sexually assaulted her. There has been no evidence. There was no, like, this came out of nowhere. And her dad to this day swears up and down that he never touched her. But that was part of their defense, what her lawyer said. And I just think that is
Valerie,
so scummy.
I have thoughts on this.
Go ahead, say your thoughts.
Like I said, I'm a third-year law student. So, you know, if all goes well and I pass the bar next summer, God willing, I will be a lawyer soon. So just crappy lawyers like this who do crappy things and let people lie on the stand and just are so cutthroat. They'll just do anything they can to like win their case. I have no respect for, because every lawyer in America takes an oath to zealously represent their client and uphold the Constitution. And that is not what this man did when he let her lie on the stand like that. Yeah. And you can get disbarred for stuff like that. And this guy went on to represent tons more people. He's the same attorney that Aaron Hernandez had.
Yeah, he does famous people now, I think, right?
Oh yeah, like a lot of high profile cases. Yeah, it's terrible. So he never faced any consequences for this, and he does like dirty tactics and stuff. And I just, as someone who's going into that profession, I take that personally almost. And I don't have any respect for it.
Yeah, it's no integrity. And I think what people get, and this is why people think lawyers are so evil and sleazy and everything, is people get caught up in we have to win at all costs. And you just can't, like, they ruined this man's reputation. From the videos and everything I watch, I don't think the average for like crime junkie, I don't think we believe it, but I think just regular Sarah who watched the trial or like who heard about it in passing, she probably thinks that. And I think that's so terrible. I think that these are
the types of lawyers that get all the attention too, you know. It's like they're the ones on the news, they're the ones that you always hear about, and that's why everyone's like, oh, lawyers are such scumbags. And I'm like, guys, I promise some of us are good people.
And these are the ones that are sensationalized, like, and this is going to sound terrible, but I do think him adding in the like child sexual assault, like, I think that made people even more interested, and that gets even more media attention, and then that gets his name out there because, oh, this is something different, especially because it came out of left field. And in the documentary I was watching, they said that their lawyer called, I want to say it was the day before, and let them know that that was going to be part of Casey's defense. And I just can't imagine. I can't imagine being him. I cannot imagine being his wife. And like, how do you let someone do that to your dad? Like, I like thinking about that. Just, I would never, like, that is, I can't. I would say there has to be another way. There has to be another way for us to make my point than to throw your dad under the bus.
Well,
that is just Oh,
just letting his client perjure herself, essentially. Like,
that too. I mean, she broke the law, but she's never going to be held accountable for that because it's over now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was part of her defense, that her dad sexually assaulted her. And I mean, in the clips that they showed, he full on like described things, like made things up, that there is no documented evidence. There is no, it came out of left field. Like, it wasn't, nobody in her history said she had mentioned it. It just came out of left field. So the part of the problem with the prosecution was that they could not tell them what happened to the body. Because when they interviewed some of the I'll go ahead and say the jury verdict. So after, I want to say they delivered for like a day or so, they came back with the verdict of not guilty on all accounts, except for what you mentioned, the child endangerment, lying to the police, and then the other one. But all the other things, so like first degree, second degree murder, all that stuff, she was found not guilty. And they interviewed one of the jurors, and he said that part of the problem was, he said, it doesn't mean she didn't do it. It just means that the prosecution didn't prove that she did it, which I think is, what is that called? It's like a different, not a distinction. Or like, I feel like that's like the phrase when people say that's something without distinction. Like, I feel like that's just semantics. Like, if you think she's murdered, then she's guilty. Like, whether they, I don't know, I hate to say it, whether they proved it or not. Like, if she did, but then again, even as I said, I'm like, no, that's not right either. Like, you have to, like, it's such a hard,
when it comes to criminal law, that's just kind of like how the system works, because the prosecution does have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, which, the annoying thing about the burdens of proof is nobody actually has a definition for them, but they tell us in law school it's like 99%. You have to be like over 99% sure. If you're a juror and you're going to convict someone, you have to be super sure they did it. And I guess they just didn't meet that burden. But then that's why this is how I like to explain it to people, so they can kind of conceptualize how they know she did it, but they couldn't convict her. It's like O.J. Simpson, he was acquitted too, but he had a civil trial too, where the burden of proof is much lower. In a civil trial, the burden of proof is only by a preponderance of the evidence. So that basically means, like, more likely than not, he caused the wrongful death, and he lost in that trial. So basically it's just the burdens of proof that you have to go by, and in a civil trial it's much lower. So,
well, that is just, that's tough, because like, so I'm constitutionalist. I think that our laws, for the most part, they've worked pretty fine, but it's just tiny moments like these people slipping through the cracks. I just think that is just so, I mean, I don't know a person in America that does not think she did it. Like, she was coined for a lot of years the most hated woman in America. I honestly can't think of anyone else so O.J. Simpson and Casey Anthony are the two people I can think of that like that got away with it, and everybody knows it. Like, and I feel like, even so, some people still say O.J. Simpson didn't do it. I don't think anyone says that about Casey Anthony. And I'll get into that afterwards, just about that whole aspect too. But like, that's so crazy. So the juror that they interviewed said that. And I think that, and he said that the problem was they didn't know where, or how she was murdered. It was just, they couldn't prove how she was murdered. So one of the theories that they put forth two theories were put forth, and it's interesting because the mother believes one thing and the father believes something else. So the mother believes that Casey went outside and fell into the pool and drowned. And Caylee fell into the pool and drowned, and Casey didn't know how to wake her back up or resuscitate her, and like, she freaked out, and then she just disposed of the body. Now, that makes absolutely no sense.
Again, I think that's probably just her mom's way of protecting herself from the reality that her daughter is a murderer.
I was just about to say that. I think that is definitely like, I cannot believe I would raise a murder. I just cannot believe that. And so then you make up these wild scenarios, because that was a scenario that the defense, I believe, put forth as well. And someone in the documentary said that they just went outside one day, was looking at the house, and was like, oh, there's a ladder in the pool. Let's say that. There's no evidence, no proof. And also too, you can't tell because of the decomposition of the body. You can't even tell. So they just said it's the pool thing. So that's what the mother believes. So the father believes, he said that she is like, Caylee would sleep for hours, like 11 hours. And he was like, he thought that was a little strange. So he thinks that she was giving her like sleeping stuff, like stuff to make her sleep, maybe even Xanax. But Xanax doesn't make you sleepy, right?
See, I mean, I'm not really sure. I've never used it. I think
mean,
it's
neither.
antidepressant, isn't it? I think it just kind of like chills you out.
Okay, I thought it, for whatever reason, I thought it like made you like hyper, but I guess you're supposed to take it when you are hyper.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I think a lot of people use it like recreationally too. And
that's
mix it with other stuff and get into all sorts of trouble with that kind of stuff. So
so I don't know.
With the Xanax thing, I read somewhere too how she, Zanny the nanny was actually Xanax.
So that's
her to chill her out, so
that's
she wouldn't
what
have to
I
deal
was
with her.
That's what I was gonna say. So thinks
sorry, I stole your thunder.
No, but it shows that like you're tracking with me. So he thinks that maybe maybe she was giving Caylee Xanax and things to like make her go to sleep, and she overdosed and she couldn't wake her up, and she felt guilty and she killed her. And he even said, so I think the prompt was like, what do you want to happen to her? And he said that he thinks that she should be in jail, his own daughter. But I mean, I would too, if like my daughter had this man, like I can't and their relationship is severed. Like they don't talk, nothing like that. The mom talks to her, but the dad is done, which I don't blame him. I mean,
put yourself in that scenario. Like that's what anyone would probably do. But it's just so heartbreaking. I mean, that's your child, it's just, and I can't imagine going through something like that.
Yeah, me neither. And that's what he said. He was like, I just can't believe this is my child. Like my child did this. And I'm like, sir, I can't believe it either. That's tough. But so she was acquitted, and she got, I believe it was 3 years time served. So she only had to spend 10 days in jail. 10 days in jail. And then she was living with her lawyer. And I mean, at one point people found her and she was like taking refuge at a church. They said sanctuary. They said sanctuary at a church, because the reality is like, once this happened, like nobody's going to hire you. Absolutely nobody will hire you. Nobody's going to even really want to be your friend, because everybody knows she did it. Everybody knows she did it. And I mean, even the stuff of like, I wouldn't want to have my purse near her. She takes people's checks. Like you
kind of have this scarlet letter after something like that happens. It's like, you're free, you're not in prison, but are you really ever free? Like,
oh no, her life is, I feel very, okay, I want to say I feel sorry for her, but at the same time I don't, because she's a murderer. She's an I guess, should we say alleged murderer? Because technically she's not, she got
acquitted, so but I don't think,
I mean, she's never going to
make you a murderer. I think killing someone makes you a murderer.
That's true. So I mean, and everybody, like, that's the crazy part, because if this was like 1850, only her little town would know. Maybe Mary Sue that came to visit for 2 days would know and would go back and tell her friends that she'd taken her wagon to in Louisiana, but like the whole world will know. The whole world knows. I mean, there's videos about it on YouTube. There's podcasts about it. We're talking about it. This is never, Nancy Grace had her whole thing about it. Once Nancy Grace gets a hold of the story, I mean, that's it. And like, it's her whole, like her life is ruined. So I mean, she's in jail technically. I mean, because she can't do anything.
And it just, I don't think she ever really learned from it or grew up, because I'm seeing stuff about her getting in bar fights and just kind of like continuing to live this just like trashy lifestyle.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I understand that like things are probably pretty hard for her, but at the same time, it's like, you always have a choice. You always have a choice in how
Yes.
you react to everything. And I think she she had a choice. She could have really committed to herself that she wanted to turn her life around and make something of herself. And she could have, advocated for some cause she's interested in, or,
Yeah.
done something meaningful and positive with her life. And she just never has. And that's why I like have a really hard time feeling any sympathy for her. That and
Yeah.
she's a murderer.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, no, that's a very good point too. Cause like I think if she at least attempted to do a little bit of something, most people will still think she's evil. But I think if she attempted to help in some sort of way to make any sort of positive change in her life, that a few people here and there would really maybe open their home, they would like give her a job. But you're right, she hasn't done anything to show that she's changed. And the reality is, like, when people don't face consequences, they just keep doing worse and worse. Like, I hate to say it, and like I hope I'm not right, but it wouldn't surprise me if we see her again in the news for something even bigger, because
right.
she's never faced consequences for this. And sure, she's in a prison of her own doing now, but that's still, I mean, she still has money. I'm pretty sure she like has made money from like books and things like that. So like she's still, there's no consequence. She didn't receive a consequence, and she's sounds like she never received a consequence her entire life. I mean, she faked her graduation. That's crazy.
Well, yeah, and like I said before, like her parents kind of enabled her like lying habit by just kind of
Yeah.
like going along with stuff and like doing whatever they could to protect their daughter and stuff like that. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, I know I've come across it in my lifetime. I'm sure you have too, but the parents who think their kids can never do anything wrong, the kids are usually the problem,
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Or like parents who, when I worked in summer camp and I would tell them, yeah, your child did X, Y. My child wouldn't do that. No, I'm telling you, like I've been with them all day and they did that.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I
And
babysat for a family that was like that. Their
yeah.
children just, oh gosh, they were so difficult and they just never they thought I was the problem. I was like, all right, you keep thinking that.
And that, I mean, and this all goes back to parenting, I guess. Casey with Caylee, Casey, George, and Cindy with Casey, it all goes back to like taking your responsibility as a parent seriously. I think that her parents, I mean, I understand, wanting to always believe your child, wanting, I mean, is my brother and I. So like I will say I am teensy bit spoiled in some areas. I'll admit that. So
I'm
like
the same way, me and my brother.
Yeah. So I understand like wanting to do that, but once your kid turns a certain age, like you're shaping citizens, you're shaping people that are going to make decisions that can affect other people. And if there's no consequences, then like that's why like some of my friends, so my friend and I, we both grew up with kind of like stricter parents. And we were talking about a girl we met, or she met in college, that I knew, and how her mom just like does not care. Like she has no rules. Her mom does not care about her. That's essentially what it is. That's what it feels like, at least. Like, I mean, this girl did any and everything when we were younger and like just was great. So it's like, at least, even if you are being strict, it shows that you care. And like I get frustrated with my parents even today, like with how sometimes like that's just too much, but it shows that they care. And I think like that lackadaisical, sure, do whatever you want. I mean, there has to be a balance, because if you're too strict, that can cause other repercussions. I mean, I'm sure there's instances where there's Casey Anthony's with too strict parents, but if you're just too lackadaisical and let your kids get away with any and everything, this could be a result.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely knew kids growing up who, their parents just, were always working, or, had split up and they were at mom's house and mom was always working, and, it was just they had too much freedom to do whatever they wanted. And that's such a formative time in people's lives, that when they're young and they're impressionable, and giving them the message that, oh yeah, it's fine if you go out and do whatever you want, that sticks with them into adulthood, and they're going to turn into adults who maybe don't always make the best choices.
Yeah. And we see how it could literally be deadly. It can literally be deadly.
Yeah.
Last thoughts on Casey?
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously a really heartbreaking case, but I think it can serve as a learning experience too. I mean, like we were just talking about, like when you're parenting, like the choices you make and the way you treat your kid and how you raise them really does matter.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that it's a learning experience. And I also think it is something that we can think about, kind of what we were saying at the beginning about different seasons we're in. I think it's just a reminder that you're in your single season for a time, you're in your married season for a time, you're in your parenting season for a time, and just embracing and being in that season. I think if she was able to actually be like, you know what, I'm in the season of being a mother right now, let me embrace that. And just, unfortunately her season of single, young, whateverness was over. She could get that, in her 80s maybe, like, but that was over. And just embracing the season you're in right now, I think, is another lesson that can really come out of this. And that's honestly something I'm going to think about too. And we have tons of people who listen that have kids, tons of people who listen that are in all different types of seasons of your life. But like, this is definitely just a reminder to embrace your season that you're in. And also to, like, maybe don't lie to the police. Don't
always
lie.
Don't lie in general. Honestly, the truth always comes out.
Yeah.
Especially about big things. I mean,
yeah.
Little things too. Just don't make it a habit.
Yeah. Don't lie. Don't lie. It's not worth it.
Good takeaways.
All right. Well, this was our first like true crime episode thing. So
I had so much fun. Thank you again for having me on.
This was fun. I'm really glad we did this. I'm excited for our next one. We'll announce it later, but this next one though is going to be really, really, I honestly kind of want to make it a two-parter because I want to get really
it's a hefty one.
Yeah. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this one. And if you did, make sure you rate, review, subscribe, like, comment wherever you're listening. If it's on Apple, Spotify, Anchor, Breaker, wherever you're listening. Oh, YouTube and Rumble, comment, like, share, and share this because we really do think there is a market for this. There are people who do want to listen to different true crime things, and they just kind of don't want all the wokeness in the back and the little cheap shots. And honestly, I don't know how many are going to give you like a nice little nugget about not lying and enjoying your seasons and making sure you're raising your kids properly. I mean, how many people are going to do that? Okay.
I'll find those silver linings.
Right. Exactly. Okay, you guys, everybody have a good rest of your day, wherever and however you're listening. Bye.
Bye.